Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. My colleagues were asking that they need to introduce me. And a little while ago in the lunch break, a person walks, I think from this corner, I think it was you, and he says, I'm just a normal person. So that gave me an idea that I don't think so I need any introduction, and I like that today. I'm just a normal person, and today it's just on this side of podium I've got to stand. Because if I'm going to say all those identities, and one of the Swamiji's lecture when I was listening, it is like, who are you? And we give our name, so that's your name, but who are you? And I'm daughter of so-and-so, or wife and so-and-so. Yes, but that's a relationship. Who are you? I'm a doctor. Yeah, but that's your profession. Then who are you? So when we start questioning these, and who are you, and then all those baggage which we have collected of our identities, the mask, it suddenly I felt heavier and I need to drop down. And thanks to that gentleman, which I call Narayana, because these, all of you sitting in front of me are Narayanas in different forms. So that was a lesson for me this afternoon, which is my newest lesson, and I thought I should share that before I begin. So I'm just a normal person. The topic given to me is the know-how of food and cooking. And you've been listening all since morning, and I was editing my talk. Okay, this is said, I don't have to say this. Okay, this is said, I don't have to say this. So then, what I have to say today. And then I realized an entire conference of probably a week can go on just food and cooking, and I've got still probably so much to say about it. We'll just go, before I begin I just want to ask, why do we eat? The most common question, and it will have a most common answer. Some random answers, why do we eat? Hungry, somebody else? Enjoy? Greedy, hungry, enjoy. Any more answers? Energy, any more? To survive, yes. So yes, that's the most common answer. To live, we eat. Let's watch a video and find out actually what are we eating for.
Because they have so much power.
No, they take $30 billion to underwrite cheap meat, and then they globalize Recent scientific research has discovered that farm animals are far from stupid. The nearest news to us comes is in the supermarket, but do we know how intelligent and sensitive they are, and how the decisions we make every day directly affect their minds?
Tens of millions of Americans have switched their diet from meat-centered meals to ones rich in vegetables, grains, beans, and other plant-based foods. Not only is it a healthy lifestyle change, but it's also helping change our environmental footprint.
The number one thing that you can do is to just stop eating meat.
So, is it we are eating to live or we are eating for extinction? So that's the question. So does Ayurveda promote only vegetarianism? That's the next question. So obviously no. You've got lists and classifications beautifully done of what meat has what characteristics, when it has to be eaten, which bird, and there's a detailing of that. But the question remains is, who is eligible to eat? Today, from 9 to 5, we are in a conference setup. It's a working day for us. So if it was not for this place, we would be in our offices. Again, 9 to 5 at the desk. So are we eligible to have the food that we are not going to digest and just sit warming up the chair? So it's not, I'm not promoting vegetarianism, though I am by birth. I don't eat eggs as well. That's my personal thing. But is any other individual, and who is eligible to have it? So when we talk about food, how much calories we eat, where the protein would come from, what's the carbohydrate? These are the thoughts that's been given to us, and we start thinking on what we have to do about it. Yeah, in Ayurveda, we've got a different perspective. What's your role? What's your profession? What's your ability to digest that food? Probably a construction worker or farmer would easily digest a meat because he works that physically hard. But are we doing that? And what's the strength of our agni? Do we eat because we are hungry? Or do we eat because it's time to eat? Or do we eat because it looks good, it smells good, and it's just there in front of us? So these some points which we have to rethink when we choose food to eat. The biggest myth that comes forward is everybody coming to my clinic, they give the forms, doctor, tell me which dosha I am I vata and I have to eat this? So everybody is already educated, they think, so-called, when they come to the clinic. And it becomes actually a double work to clean that impression and give them a new thought. Because any link that you are going to go on a search in the internet now, they give you this questionnaire, find your prakriti, and then this is your food that you should be eating. But are we understanding what prakriti is? Or is that diet? So let's say there's a family of minimum 4 people, a husband, wife, 2 children, and each of them has a different prakriti. Does that poor wife have to cook 4 different meals for 4 different people? Just a common way of thinking. So it can't be that according to your prakriti you are eating. The diet has to be wholesome. There are 6 tastes mentioned. We've heard that in the lovely slide which Dr. Shanti had presented, that how the Panchabhautik or how the basic elements are divided into it. So it's not about that. It's only for those, we consider that, okay, I'm having certain kind of ailment, so okay, I should abstain from this. So this is one part in my talk. I thought today I'll use this platform to clear that you can't be suddenly doctors on internet and decide this is your prakriti and this is your food. You definitely need experts to decide that for you, whether that's your prakriti or that's your vikriti, because that's a very subtle thing. And even a doctor, the most expert, cannot say that in one going. He has to see you several times to understand your temperament also, not your physical characteristics alone. So So let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food was said by Hippocrates. What's the meaning into the whole thing? We always see these kinds of sentences, and are we giving a thought for this kind of predominantly, as I said, it's more, yes, and one of the answer was it's the greed that we eat too. But food, more than also nourishing the physical body, it nourishes the most subtlest aspect, and I call that as mind. So probably what you have eaten, the gross form, nourishes the gross body, and the subtle form nourishes your subtle aspect. That's the mind. And so one answer was somebody enjoyed the food. Yes, eating food gives us happiness. If you're starving, you'll feel irritated. So, do we know basically how to eat food? What is to be done? We'll always take the effort of finding out what to eat. Is this good? But we never take an effort of how to eat. It's never been taught. We'll be given the list of this is good, and that would be universally, okay, this is good means everybody is going to eat the same thing. And yes, we've heard since morning the speakers telling us that it's not so. You have to see for your own individual self what you are digesting better. And that's the criteria. Suppose today my mood is not good, and then there are some people who say, yes, then that's the time I eat the most. And here Ayurveda says at that time you should not be eating. So how many of us like to cook food and eat warm food? That's out of question. We are salad people. We say are health conscious people, and we eat salads. And here Ayurveda mentions, let the food be warm. That's the first ever criteria, let the food be cooked. And that instills a better appetite, a better digestive power. And when Dr. Ramesh was mentioning in the morning, like whole of your system, whether it's your immune system, it affects, it's the starting point is how you have eaten the food and what you have eaten. We are so health conscious that it's devoid of any unctuous substances. We hardly put any oil into it. And we heard a beautiful lecture from the cardiologist in the morning. So how much oil we need? What oil we need? Do we need oil? So everybody is scared of the cholesterol, and the oil part, the unctuous part in the food is gone already. So it's no more a hot food, and the unctuous part is also gone, and that is the basic criteria actually in Ayurveda for the balance of your health. Matravat, that means to eat in a proper quantity. And now what is a proper quantity? Our criteria always remains this, that if I like the food, I eat a lot, and if I don't like, I don't eat. So our criteria is not as per the portion that we need. Our criteria is as per our likes and dislikes. The stronger our likes and dislikes in life, you can just assure yourself there's a downfall. It's not just for the food, it's for a person, it's for a thing, it's for an experience. So when we are going to get ruled ourselves by likes and dislikes, that means it's a pendulum between happiness and sorrow. And there we lose. If we get something what we like, we are always happy. But when it's the other thing, that just brings us down to sorrow. So this matravat, it's something that we like, then it can go. So again, our decisions go wrong. And now I'll stick to the point of food. So decisions to eat, how much food is going to go wrong. Can we just standardize, okay, this is the age group, this is the weight, and this many calories you need. Can we standardize the food into that? All of us sit at the table and eat. Has anybody tried sitting down on the floor and eating food? How many of you have sat down on the floor and eaten? Try. So there's hardly 1 or 2 hands I see. Try that tonight. Let the plate be down and you are sitting on a little elevated surface on the ground, and try. So when you're bending yourself forward, each time you take a morsel and you sit straight and you chew, and again you're bending forward, and then when you're sitting on the ground, this happens often. Automatically at a certain point you feel your stomach is full. And when you get up thinking your stomach is full, then actually it's not so very full. That's half the quantity of your stomach. So half the quantity of your stomach should be of solid food, means you get this. And then the question comes, when do you drink water? So some say don't drink water with the food, and that's the common theory we hear. Ayurveda has a very simple thing, drink water with the food. So you are chewing, you're bending forward, you're taking your morsel, you're chewing it well, and then you sip of water. And you do this couple of times. So that's enough. So it's half a stomach of the food with the gross food, 1/4 with the liquids, and yes, 1/4 you need to leave it empty. So this criteria never exists when we are hungry or when we like the food. Leaving stomach empty is not a question at all. So we have never thought about that. So this Matravat, to experience that, I think yes, tonight all of you take your plates down. The reason is when you sit at a dining table, your plate is about 6 inches above your navel region. So you're sitting straight, and those are our table manners that we are taught. But when you sit on the ground, when your plate is down, your plate is 6 inches below your navel region. And the action is the forward bending that you are going to do. So try this and find out what is half stomach full of stomach to eat, fill the food with, and that's going to be Matravat. Jeerne. We've eaten lunch a little while ago, and if something comes in front of us now, which is very nice and good, we might even have it. So we are not considering whether we have digested the previous food and then we are eating it. Am I hungry now and so I am eating? Or because it is come and it's a tea time, a snack time, so I am eating. So to analyze, yes, I have digested the previous food. The first sign is you are going to feel lightness. You are going to feel enthusiastic. And there's a sign of hunger building up again. So if you are not satisfying at least these 3 minimum criterions, I think you are not ready for the food yet. The next, there are so many different points that we have. Always a business meeting that is going to be on a lunch or a dinner. We are going to drive through the food or the sandwich because there's no time that we say always. So it's always going to be fast. It's always going to that we are going to talk and we are going to laugh. So there's no quieting at the time of eating food. We'll see this later. I'll come to that point again. Why we having to drive ourselves through when we are eating. What are actually the factors that are necessary or that influence the digestion? Yes, we talk about the heat. There's another factor called as wind. There's another factor called as kleda, which moistens the food, which is also unctuous substances are necessary. A time gap is necessary, and there is something called as a balance of this. So we'll come back again on these topics. So anybody knows these, anybody buys these vegetables, knows, is it familiar? Most of the answers, probably very few hands coming up. Our common vegetables are what? Potato, mushroom, soya. These are convenient things. They are fast cooking, and that's all is being bought. Eggplant maximum. And what are these basically then? The first one is the snake god, the middle is the ivy god, the bitter god is there, the down line is the bottle god, the ridge god, and the ash god. So I do not know if anybody even knows how to clean them and what is to be scooped out or what is to be used and which pulp has to be used and which pulp has to be used. So this is our condition at the moment, that how to use the gods. Like if you open the first vegetable, the snake god, we remove the inside thing. But for the bottle god, which is the first one in the second line, we use the whole thing. So the use of the vegetables, and we feel that hardly there are any vegetables. And this I've just labeled few, and few means it's only 6. So even if you choose 1 per day, you've got your week vegetable. So we can come out from that potato, mushroom, soya, and convincing ourselves that yes, it's protein rich. But whether the body is digesting or not, that we have never given a thought of. Whenever we talk of Indian food, we say it's spicy. But need not be it's always spicy. So I'm meaning spicy as hot. It's only a green chili, red chili that would give that hot feeling. But other spices you can actually freely use. A cumin, a coriander, it's asafoetida, a turmeric powder. These don't make your food spicy at all. They enhance your digestion. So how to blend the spices, that is also an art of cooking. When to blend, whether you put something in the oil or whether you put something later on, at what stage of cooking you have to add all these things, there is a significance for this. So again, when we say the perspective of how to cook food, it comes first whether you are interested in cooking or not. Whether we get frightened by using a coconut oil or ghee. In the morning we spoke about it. But the unctuous substance, instead of a refined flour, the most safest thing, we are not drinking tons of ghee or thing. It's a 1 spoon of seasoning that you use. That can be any of this. A little dash, a little drop on your roti or your chapati. A little drop on your rice, on your hot dal that you're taking. And your seasoning, it can easily be with these unctuous substance. We'll go ahead. How we would be garnishing things, and is it just for some aroma that we are using, the coriander and the mints, or they are really having any digestive properties? Yes, this is what we say, the frame of mind. We never consider that when we are eating, and neither we consider that when we are cooking. At both times, there is certainness of I-ness that is being heard. Either I want to prove, or I want to say how well I cook, or I want to finish the job of cooking and go to my next work. So until and unless we calm ourselves mentally down and enjoy the process of actually cooking and enjoy also the process of eating, we are not in the right frame of both the consumer or as a doer. Are we doing it mindfully? That's the next one. And this I'm going to keep now my main thing, and I'm going to combine of what all the points that we said, we'll see it later, we'd see it later. A very familiar figure for all of you probably this is, and some time or another you have seen this in many ways. We've got in Singapore loads of temples and loads of pujas happening. At least once you must have seen this happening. What's this act of divinity, and what's it related to our food that we either it's consuming or whether we are cooking, in the both aspects. So this frame of mind, or what are we going to use, it is all connected to this particular process, the Agni Homa, the Homa Kunda, where when we are praying, we don't see, okay, let me check that WhatsApp message and then let me continue my prayer. Let me just check this and switch off this flame and then let me continue my prayer. We don't do this. When we sit for a prayer, we complete our prayer, and then everything else happens at that later point. So the act of eating or the act of cooking is exactly like this. So the fire, the Agni in your stomach, or the Agni or the fire, which is the gas stove in your kitchen, both are having this divinity, and both needs to be respected. It can't be combining your jobs and then doing it and then say, oh, I'm not satisfied with the food. So if the doer is also not in a frame of mind, the consumer gets that same thing. And same thing, if the consumer is also not in a frame of mind, will not know how much the person is eating or not eating at all. Not all people who are stressed eat too much. There are some people with little stress, they give up food also. So both extremes we have to consider over here, and not allow the mind to rule our act of cooking or the act of eating. Each thing that is being poured into that auspicious fire, we call this as ahuti. That means a prayerful offering that is done. And when we are offering anything, it's to be done with fullest devotion. It can't be with divided attention. Undivided attention. That's while cooking, and undivided attention while eating. But it never happens. It's the family dinner together. It's the dinner in front of television. It's dinner with something. It's dinner while driving. It's dinner at computer table. So unless all these are stopped, whatever the previous speakers have said we're trying to achieve, whether it's a cancer, whether it's an immune disease, we are not going to succeed in balancing the health of it. So today, we take this, I would like to give you this as a takeaway rather, that in India we have this of divinizing everything. I started by divinizing the person that we say a little while ago, but it's the trees, the mountains, the rivers, everything is divinized. The food also is divinized. And from that itself a human is born, and we find the various Upanishad sentences that from anna, from food, the bhuta comes. So the human being comes. So that is the importance of the food. That food is making us. So I had another Swamiji's lecture, and he had said, for this 1.5 inch of your muscle, of the flesh, the rest of the 5 feet, 6 feet flesh, you are just discarding. So you just want to please this 1.5 inch flesh, means he meant the tongue. And just to please that, the rest of the body, you just avoid it, because that for that moment you need to please it. But what happens to the body thereafter, that afterthought we are not thinking. Poor body has to sit and process what you have eaten, and whether it processes or not, we do not know. And as Dr. Ramesh said, ama is formed, undigested material is formed and kept and stored in the body, no, not for how many days, weeks or years, later to form and manifest as a disease if not taken care. So the blending of spices, blending of certain things is enhancing this digestion to reduce this ama effect. So quick thoughts, 7 points I am going to just randomly say, which you need to consider. The first is the swabhava, that is the nature of the food you need to know. Swabhava, whether the food is heavy to digest or light, whether I am having that appetite or no, is my Agni power that. So you have to analyze, a food cannot be permanently heavy or, yes, certain things by nature are heavy, like we say yogurt, which is favorite of all, and I will say no for yogurt, it's heavier, but you can convert that into buttermilk, which becomes lighter. So everybody's eyebrows will raise when I say, okay, don't eat buttermilk, or don't have lentils, but you can prefer the green gram compared to the other lentils, which is going to be lighter. So there is we call it as taratama bhava, the comparisons that is going to happen. The second point is sanyoga. Sanyoga means the combinations, the admixtures, what I am going to mix with what. I have seen so many times people want to drink warm water, but they don't want to boil it. So the easiest way is hold it under the hot water tap and then under the cold water tap. That's not a right way. You can't mix hot and cold together. There is something called kshobha. That means there is a change happening in that water body. So if you want hot water and you can't take that hot water, take it and leave it for some time till it becomes warm, or you are able to consume till that heat. The third point is samskara. Samskara means, how are we soaking the grains? Are we doing any Agni samskara on that? The best example is this ghee. You take the milk, you are boiling the milk, you are putting little yogurt into it, you convert the milk into the yogurt, then you put some water into it, then you churn it into buttermilk, you get the butter on top, the butter you take and then you heat, it melts, then you get the ghee. So there is so many samskaras happening on that product of milk, and the ultimate product it comes to ghee, that it becomes lighter for digestion and it's easier if you consume a little ghee. The fourth point is matra, which I dealt, like how the stomach should be half filled with gross food substance, 1/4 for the liquid and 1/4 to be empty. Then comes the desha. Desha is the habitat. So where you are now, you eat the food of that particular region. So you get now anything, you get American apples over here, you can get anything of any region everywhere and even out of season. So again, that's a problem for your health. So we have to see where the food is grown and where the consumer is and what is easier to digest. Then comes kala. When you are hungry, you must eat. Kala means time, when to eat. So what if I get hungry in middle of the night? Train the body to be hungry. Pindite Brahmandi, one of the doctors said over here, what's happening in your body is happening in the universe. So at the universe, when the sun is brightest at about 12 noon, that's the time your Agni in the body is also brighter. So tune your body to that so that your heaviest meal is around your lunch time and it's never at your dinner time. This is just one of the aspects. And the last comes, seventh, that is the Upayoga Vyavastha. That means how you have to eat. So those were the criteria when we said don't eat too fast, don't eat too slow. When you're sitting down, sit with all your spoon, fork, whatever you need with your glass of water. It's not that when you sit for eating and then you get up, oh, I need a napkin. Oh, the dal is left over there. I need water. And then you get up several times. It's like this Homakunda. When you sit for doing a puja, you complete that ritual. So eating is like that. You collect everything and you sit, whatever you require, if there's nobody to serve you, and you don't have to get up several times, and then you sit for the act of that divinity and complete that. The last point was the tanmana bhunjita, with complete concentration, with mindful eating, with awareness. Then whatever happens is an easy digestion. So it's easy to follow if we are willing to. Like, we would never go to office saying that it's too late, let me not take shower today. It's too late, let me not brush today. These are something which we do and we go. So we make time at least for these basic things. It's exactly like that. I have to cook, so I have to get up at such and such a time and I need to do. So when there is a will, you will find a way. But if that's not your priority, there will always be a reason how you cannot do. And mind is very good to trick your mind. So it's good to trick the mind before it tricks you. Namaste.